Welcome back to episode 34 of the Precious Metal Gents podcast. I'm Zan here with Brian. Tonight we're continuing our one of one series. We're going to be looking at 98 score showcase one of ones in particular. A little bit off the beaten path, but for the huge 90s fanatics, they know that set well. We'll start with our recurring segments. And before we get to mail day, Brian, yesterday the MLB Hall of Fame results for the latest ballot came in. Ichiro Suzuki, Billy Wagner, CC Sabathia were the three first ballot Hall of Famers. Wagner wasn't first ballot. What are your thoughts on the three inductees?
The one that I was most, happy for is to see Billy Wagner get in. I know it's kind of tough to get a relief pitcher, especially even a closer in the Hall of Fame. I know they're just not. It's difficult for the writers to really put them in unless it's Mariano Rivera. But Billy Wagner was one of the best closers in baseball history, one of the best relief pitchers in baseball history, just on a lot of great teams. So it was good to see him finally get in. I can't remember how many ballots that's been for him. I don't know if you know that or not.
I think it was 8.
Yeah, that's
10.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was a lot.
And I'm not a big proponent of getting a ton of opening up to a ton of closers, because as we move on, relief pitchers are becoming more and more part of the game, and before you know it, you're going to start inducting everybody. So I guess maybe just some of these, I like to see some of these guys where closers weren't such a huge role, but there was these significant pitchers at the end of bullpens that would really pitch in big games, and he was one of them. So it was good to see him get in. My guy CC Sabathia, it's good to see him get in, but I know you posted the thing about Curt Schilling. It kind of, not to say CC Sabathia shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame like he should, but there's just so many pitchers out there that aren't in, and I just start to wonder how are they not in, and Sabathia gets a first ballot. It just seems weird to me. I sent something to you with David Cohn. His numbers are pretty much identical to CC. You posted the Curt Schilling one. So I mean, and then obviously with the Ichiro, I think a lot of people listening to this that follow me saw it. I wasn't really targeting Ichiro, he shouldn't have been in the Hall of Fame. I just think it was kind of crazy that the writers almost had a unanimous vote. Would have been the second unanimous vote for a guy, to me, that should be in the Hall of Fame. But I mean, he's not even a first ballot. If you look at some of the guys that are out, like Kenny Lofton or Beltran and people like that.
Yeah, I think Beltran will probably get it next year. Andrew Jones, to me, was a huge omission. Yeah. We talked before about the NFL. We've talked about Terrell Davis at his peak being one of the most dominant players. And Andrew Jones at his peak was arguably the best defensive player, outfielder ever. Arguably, I'd say. But I think he should get in as well. And honestly, all these guys, Sabathia to me was kind of fringe. I don't have any problem with any of them really being in the Hall of Fame, but you do look, like you said about the saves, the relievers, the closers in particular. Now, if Craig Kimbrell and Kenley Jansen are pretty much shoo-ins for the Hall of Fame because they're both still active and already are higher, have more career saves than Wagner did. Francisco Rodriguez has more career saves, K-Rod. I don't know if that alone is enough, probably not. But, it's interesting to see, because at the end of the day, everyone does it. We compare who's in to who's out. And Sabathia and Schilling, obviously there's maybe more to it than his on-field production. And then Sabathia, you put the thing about Cone, another guy who had a higher career WAR, higher career ERA. I mean, better career ERA, better career ERA plus was Kevin Brown. And nobody thinks about Kevin Brown as a Hall of Famer. He played for 6 teams in 15 years. A great pitcher, won the ERA title twice. But he's not a Hall of Famer. He was also in the Mitchell Report, which I think probably cost him a chance there. But he fell off after the second ballot, which was pretty incredible, given that he had roughly equal career numbers to Sabathia. So, like I said, I think we don't want to disparage the guys who were in. We're just saying there's definitely other candidates who it just surprises us with the ease with which Ichiro and Sabathia got in when guys like Schilling, Loft, and Brown have never really had a good shot of getting in.
Manny Ramirez. I mean, he's another one that's linked to PEDs,
Steroids.
so he probably won't
Yeah.
get in. But I mean, that's a whole other discussion about the PED guys. Like, I think we both stand on the fact that like Barry Bonds and guys like that need to be in the Hall of Fame, because other than that, it's not. Otherwise, it's not really a Hall of Fame. It's more of just kind of like a hall of great players that follow the rules. I mean, you got to tell the whole purpose, I think, is a museum to tell the story of the sport, and you're not really telling the story of the sport unless you put in guys like Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, Manny Ramirez, A-Rod, Bonds, among others, Roger Clemens. I mean, it's just kind of crazy that one of the top three pitchers in all time, Roger Clemens, is never going to get in. It's just nuts to me.
Yeah, I
Best
agree with
player
you.
in baseball history, Bonds, isn't going to get in.
Sosa, McGuire, that's funny. Like I think about, and maybe it's peak nostalgia, but for our generation, the summer of '98 was maybe the most memorable time in
Yeah.
baseball history, like while we've been alive, that
In
period of
sports, I
time.
mean, you could put it
Right.
up against
Yeah.
anything in sport. It's saved the sport of baseball as what we know it right now. There was strike after strike, or there was threats of strikes and then strikes when we were a strike when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
And there could have been more down the road, and there could have been teams closing shop. There was a lot of bad things going on in baseball at that time, and those guys, I mean, they saved it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we'll see. I mean, time will tell. People, opinions on this stuff become fluid as time passes, and people let go of grudges and stuff. Hopefully, that things will even out over time. Well, last week I was 2-2. You were 1-3 on our NFL picks. Tough weekend. A couple surprise victories there with the Commanders anyway. And I would call I guess I wouldn't call the Bills over reasons a surprise necessarily, but I thought the Ravens would put up more of a fight. The 2 point margin was not really indicative of the tone of the game. The Ravens were kind of always clawing back from behind, even though they were up 7-0 at first, then they just kind of fell behind. So this weekend we've got Commanders Eagles in the NFC title game, and then a rematch Bills Chiefs in the AFC title game. Let's start with the NFC championship. We got Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. Who do you pick?
I mean, at this point, I'm just going to go the way I've been picking. I've been picking, trying to pick with my head, but then in other scenarios, like other pools and bets and stuff like that, I pick the other way. So it's really weird. I pick differently on this show than what I do out here, but I'm just going to go with my heart and see what happens. Let's just say that Washington, Jane Daniels leads them to a Super Bowl. I haven't been really impressed with Philly for 2 weeks in a row now. It's not that they're playing bad. It's not. I mean, they beat the Packers pretty handedly. They really won that game, I guess, pretty handily. Even though the Rams kind of had a shot there at the end, but they were in control of the game. There's just something I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's Jalen Hurts. Um, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's not really their passing game, because they were throwing the ball pretty well last week. Their defense was solid. There's just something there that I think can be exploited. I think it might be on the defensive side of the ball, maybe because Washington's played them twice and they split with them both times, that maybe Washington will be able to pull off an upset here. There's a lot of tape on both teams, but I feel like there's more of that not wild card round, but the wild card characteristics from the Washington side. Like I think like Cliff can scheme something up to really exploit some things with Philly, because I think that Philly is going to kind of go in playing how they've played Washington the past couple times. And I think Washington might just go, we're going to pull out all the stops, and they're going to be highly aggressive. And I think if Washington gets ahead, that really hurts, no pun intended, hurts and Philly, because if they have to just drop back and pass with him, that's where they get in trouble.
Yeah.
Washington can play from behind. Like we've seen Daniels, he'll run around, make plays. I mean, we've seen him do it a lot. They're totally comfortable playing from down 2 scores. I don't think Philly is, and I think it would be kind of a shock if they got down early and had to rally the troops to get back. So I'll take Washington in this one.
Yeah, I actually am going to go with Washington as well. There's something, it's completely narrative driven and not really based in any fact, but there's something kind of like magical about the way that Washington has kind of come together to end the season. The victory over the Bears, the way they won that game, just what was the game? It was maybe it was the Eagles. It was the Eagles game
Yeah.
when they were playing the Eagles the second time when Pickett was starting. And then they came back from behind there. And then they just, absolutely torched the Lions last week. And you made a point to me off air, though, like Cliff Kingsbury, like if there's somebody who can scheme, and for one game or whatever to beat a defense, Cliff Kingsbury is up there. And Daniels gives them just the ultimate weapon, from the pocket or with his legs. And I think, yeah, what you're saying about the Eagles is they seem to be playing relatively solid in most areas, but they're not really beating anyone convincingly. I mean, even though scores may indicate they don't look cohesive out there, especially the passing game. Like if Barkley gets going, you got a shot. I mean, he can knock off 70-yard runs just as easy as any running back in the league, like we saw last week. But if he's slow to start or he's dealing with any kind of nagging injury or whatever it may be, like they're heavily dependent upon him. And so Washington has some really good defensive players up the middle. So I'm going to go with the Commanders. Ride the hot hand. They're on the road. The line's -6, I think, or 6.5. But yeah, I'd love to see them in the Super Bowl. It'd be really fun to see a rookie make it that far. So I'll go with the Commanders as well. Who do you think is the team that they'll be playing? Will it be the Bills or the Chiefs?
Well, I'm gonna put this out there. I'm rooting for the Bills. I want the Bills to win. If I were to bet on this game, which I might, I will bet on the Bills. But I don't think that the Bills are gonna win. Just like my brain tells me that the Chiefs just always do what they need to do to win, whether you believe it or not. It just happens to have they happen to have the refs, and a lot of the calls go their way. I'm not saying that I'm not wearing the tinfoil hat and saying that the refs are cheating for them or anything, but it's when the ball seems to bounce their way, and I would think that it would do it again. It's going to be, I think, very close. We might see one of like a great playoff game, where it's back and forth, where we get like the old throwback Mahomes and Allen game from, I can't remember, a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think where they were just going back and forth, and
yeah.
Allen, the Bills can easily beat them. I just think that at the end of the day, like Mahomes is going to win it's going to be a one-score game, last second field goal or something to break the Bills' hearts. But I'm going to be all in on the Bills, rooting for them.
Yeah, I don't know who to root for because obviously I'm tired of seeing the Chiefs win, but the Bills are in the AFCs, and I typically do not root for AFCs teams if they're
I hear you.
if they're playing. But I'm going to I'm going to pick the Bills to win, mainly because kind of the things we've been saying about the Chiefs, which is like this seems to be the weakest Chiefs team in years in the playoffs to have gotten this far. But I mean, even though they won 15 games, they still seemed like they were beatable at almost every time during the season. I don't know. Allen seems to have that. This year he played really clutch against the Ravens. Didn't turn the ball over. He's been really good about limiting turnovers, which is huge. So I think I'm going to go with the Bills. Two road teams, maybe a little bit of a bold pick, but it'd be nice to see two new teams in the Super Bowl this year. I think everybody would enjoy seeing Allen versus Daniels.
Yeah, and I picked at the beginning of the year. I thought it was going to be the Chiefs and the Lions to go to the Super Bowl, and I thought the Chiefs were going to win again. So I'm just going to keep rolling with that. My heart was the Packers against the Chiefs, and the Packers win it. But my realistic pick was the Lions and the Chiefs. So I'm going to just keep rolling with the Chiefs on it.
Let's move into mail day. You have two new pickups. What'd you end up with?
First one is the 2015 Bowman Chrome Superfractor 101 of K-Rod, Francisco Rodriguez.
Oh, yeah.
I posted that on my IG page. So if you're listening to this, it's already up there. But just a really cool card. It's his only superfractor in a Brewers uniform. It's one of his few superfractors. We were talking about relievers and Billy Wagner getting in. K-Rod, if you haven't looked at some of his numbers and you don't remember him, take a look at some of his stats. He was a really dominant closer in a number of different cities. Mainly, his rise to fame was when he was really young, coming in some clutch moments for those really good Angels teams. He was just really nasty, and then he had a really long career. By the time he got to the Brewers, he was a little bit older and struggled a little bit with some of his stuff, but he was one of the guys that just never changed the way that he pitched. So for better or worse, he was going to throw what he was going to throw, how he wanted to throw it, and he had a long career with it. Was a little scary in later moments with the Brewers. They used to call him the 30 minutes of terror because he could, in a 2-run game, he could come in to get the save and he might give up a run and load the bases and then just strike somebody out and pump his fist and go nuts on the mound. So he was fun to watch. He was a great closer.
That's a nice card. That's how I felt about Kimbrel sometimes when he was at the Red Sox. Like, he made it as difficult as possible to get the save, but it worked out.
Yeah.
What's your other one you got?
So my first Jordan Love Gold.
Nice.
It's a 2023 Prism. Trying to do the gold run of him now. I think the market, I waited to buy his cards because his prices were really high and then he had instant success when he started. And I didn't want to pay those prices. I felt like I got a good value on this card. So I'm going to try to pick up some of his golds and do the gold run of him early enough where like I can watch the guy's career instead of like cleaning up at the end of the career like Aaron Rodgers. It's kind of fun to buy these as they go along or as his career goes along. So I'm not going to get too crazy with him. I'll just look for decent prices. But he doesn't have too many golds right now. He has I think he has, he has 4 Prism golds.
4, yeah.
4 Prism golds and then 2 optics. And these include his rookies. So it's manageable right now. His rookies are a little pricey still, but
yeah,
I'll keep picking them up. But I really like that one. It's his second card in a second Prism in a Packers uniform that's affordable. The rookie is in the Packers uniform, but it's pretty pricey right now. And then his second year, he's in a warm-up gear. So it's just, I like that 2023.
That's right. Did you trade the gold vinyl?
Or yeah, I still have the gold vinyl.
Oh, okay.
I bought the gold vinyl with the intent of like, I don't have like a gold vinyl run of anybody. This would be kind of cool to get because gold vinyls tend to sometimes sell a little cheaper than the golds. Typically, they're out of 5. They're cool. I love the superfractor look, but then I bought it and I'm like, no, wait, now it's not going to match any of the other Prism stuff that I do for Packers. I always get like either a finite or a gold out of 10. I'm like, this is going to be weird. So I'm like, I got to get the golds. And then this gold came available in a like the day after I decided that this gold came available in a group. And I'm like, okay, that's just a sign that I got to switch and do that. So now I'm trying to trade or sell the vinyl. If anybody listening to this has the 2021 gold out of 10, I got the gold vinyl. I would trade that for that. So.
Yeah, and so he may only have, let's say there's one more year Prism. He may only have 5 Prism golds. And so, that's, I saw, Premier, we were talking about this. Premier, if you're a Love collector, it's maybe not a terrible time if you want like a high-end Love. I think his Cracked Ice, I think it's a BGS 9 rookie is on there. His Optic rookie Gold Vinyl 101, his Black XRC 101, I think are all on Premiere ending pretty soon. So if you want a high-end Love, that might be a place to look. I picked up, I've got a lot, but the ones I've posted, so I'm trying to do these pairings. 2022 Optic Golds of Amon-Ra St. Brown, PSA 10, and Justin Jefferson, PSA 8. These are, I know they're not like huge cards by any stretch, but it just surprises me, I guess. I don't know, because there's such the Justin Jefferson gold Optic would probably be like $5-6 grand or something because his Prism's like $10 grand, right? But like this is like a third year optic, and it was $150.
Yeah.
It's just a really it's a fun way to access these cards. The Amon Ra was I think under 200 as well. So like pretty fun way to access these players on rare cards. And again, I like knowing that there's an end to the Panini era, so you can say, okay, this guy will have X amount of golds or whatever, X amount of optic golds, X amount of prism golds, etc. So I got those two. Also got a CD Lamb Snakeskin Prism, his rookie, which I posted yesterday. I really like Snakeskins. I did a little write up on them, but hobby exclusive. Unlike an insert set like Kaboom or Downtown where there's maybe 20 players, Snakeskins apply to the whole 400 card checklist, and you get one per hobby case. So they're tough to find. There's only 13 lambs graded by PSA, and I think so over the 4 years, not excluding 2024, so the prior 4 years where they've had Snakeskins, there's no player who's had 20 graded by PSA. Not to say that there aren't 20 out there, because there's raw copies, but Tua and Trevor Lawrence had 19 each. I think some of those are probably crack and reslab because regrades, just because people are flipping those and they want to try to get higher grades on them. But I really like the parallel. I don't typically go for unnumbered stuff, but for the decent price that these are, I kind of gravitate towards these. I like hobby exclusive rare parallels. And then I also picked up, I'll post it later, a 2020 Mosaic Gold CD Lamb out of 10, his rookie. I love the Mosaic pattern. It goes all the way back to, it was 93 Pacific Prisms. Was that the first like Mosaic-ish pattern? I think it was.
Yeah, I think the prisms were.
Yeah.
I think it was it 93, or did they have? We talked about this, one of the sets. I forget if it was the 92. Someone's gonna message after or post a comment. It's either way. It's the early right. Pacific prisms. Those were the first prism Mosaic pattern ish.
Mm-hmm. And I like that design. One thing I give Panini credit for is they're not reinventing the wheel, but they are putting a twist on it. So like Mosaic, obviously the effect itself is not new, but the way they color the card, the way they design it, some of the parallels I really like. The Nebula obviously was a big one. It was in Spectra first, but it kind of popularized it in Mosaic. And then you have like the Genesis and Peacock, stuff like that I think is kind of a cool way to change up the design. So I've liked Mosaic. Again, it's sort of like the fourth Optichrome product behind the big three. So I think that makes it a little bit more affordable, and so people can get in at a good price. So that was what I picked up this week. We did a card of the week. I picked kind of an unusual one. Brian, you want to talk about?
Sure.
Talk about this.
Share your screen. Do you have the sale?
Yeah, hold on. Let me pull it up.
While you're pulling it up, I'll talk about it. You have the 98 Topps WCW NWO Eddie Guerrero Authentic Signatures PSA 8.
Here it is. Can you see it?
Yeah, it's an awesome card. Looks totally pissed off. If you used to watch wrestling in the 90s, the WCW, NWO, and the Attitude Era with WWF, just the clashes on those weeknights, and this just epitomizes just that era with his face. If you're listening to this, go on YouTube and look this card up. It's just an awesome looking card, on card signature, great autograph, by the way.
Yeah, it's a really clean autograph. Funny, I was just trying to read up about him. He went to college. I think he went to Texas El Paso and was like involved in like college wrestling or something, and then decided to go professional. But yeah, he was sort of a legend, like worked his way up the rungs of WCW, and then I think became U.S. heavyweight champion at some point. Or cruiserweight maybe. But this, I actually ripped a box of this maybe a couple of years ago because it was like, it has $100 or something like that. But these were hard to pull. I think they were only 1 in 40. There were 1 in 40 hobby packs, the autographs, but you had a checklist with a bunch of people that weren't really that important. So I checked out this Guerrero. So this is a PSA 8. There's only 21 total of these graded by PSA, and now I know a lot of people probably may not grade this card necessarily, but the prior two sales were raw copies in October and November of about $1,300. So people clearly like the card, whether it's graded or not. The highest sale ever for the card was a raw copy in 2023 for just over $1,800. And I can't, did we say the price on this? It was $1,700 best offer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Earlier today, actually. So the highest sale ever from the set, wanted to see that, was a Macho Man Randy Savage PSA 10 Pop 1, sold back in August for $12,500. So obviously we hear a lot about like the Prism and the Select Wrestling and the Optic, the Topps Chrome and stuff like that, but you don't hear a ton about 90s wrestling cards.
Do you have a picture of that Macho Man? Does that have a picture?
Yeah, let me see here.
When did do you remember when he passed away?
Good question. It was before, I think, the sale happened.
Okay. Because he, right here. I mean, I don't think he has. That's an awesome card. I don't know if he has we need a wrestling person to message us, but I don't know how many pack autograph cards he has.
Pack fold autos. Yeah, that's a good point. And he's in the red NWO stuff here, which is kind of cool. That was the rival faction, the Wolfpack faction, right? I think like they had this, and then you had the LWO, which Guerrero was in. So I don't know. I just thought it was kind of a funny card to pick. We don't talk much about 90s wrestling, but that's one you can check out if you're into Guerrero cards or just wrestling cards in general. All right, Brian, you posted something soliciting feedback or unpopular opinions on Instagram. You got a number of people that replied. So
actually, this was from me pulling. I didn't start this one. This was from.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah, somebody else started this thread with the unpopular opinions, and they've been all over Instagram lately. If you've
it's like one of those share things, right? Yeah. Where you share your own.
So I got this from somebody. I was going to post an opinion, but then I started reading through, because you can look on the thread at other people you have done it. And I saw all these other ones. I'm like, wow, these would be cool to kind of talk about. So I'm going to read through. I think I have 7 of them here. Not listing the names of who posts them, even though they're public, and some of you might have seen it, but they're interesting opinions. And then I'll read through them, and then we're going to agree or disagree and just briefly tell why. And then afterwards, we'll say, if we have an unpopular opinion possibly, and just talk about it maybe. All right. So I'll read them, and then you start off by telling me whether you agree or disagree and why. All right. So the first one that we have is BGS is number 2 over SGC in football, basketball, and ultramodern baseball. What do you think? Agree or disagree?
I agree. And I guess it depends on what we're talking about. Like if the idea is does it just sell better? I think probably so. But is it a preferred grading company for collectors? I don't know about that. What do you think?
This one I disagree with. I just think that BGS, if you'd asked me a couple years ago, maybe I would say that, but I think BGS has fallen so far that they're below SGC. Definitely in vintage, and they're non-existent in vintage. The BVGS or whatever it is, BVG, is done. The vintage portion of it, and then with SGC, there's a lot more people that are getting ultramodern baseball SGC slabs. So I think that SGC with their pricing and stuff like that, there's just a lot more SGC coming out. I think they're above BGS now. They've overtaken them.
The way this is worded, though, it sounds like they're saying football, basketball, and ultramodern baseball. So does the ultramodern only apply to the baseball? Because if so, right, like football, basketball, like I think there's a good argument that like RPAs or patch cards from like the 2000 to 2010 time frame, but if it's ultramodern only,
wrong, I don't know. Unless they unless they meant to say like BGS is number 2 behind.
No, I'm sorry. This says ultra. Like, are they referring to ultramodern football, basketball, and baseball, or is it football, basketball, and ultramodern baseball? Do you see what I'm saying? How it's worded?
Yeah,
Like, are
I
they?
don't know.
Yeah. Oh well.
I think
Either
SGC
way.
is over them anyway in everything, so I don't really care what it is. Because
All right, I'm going to ask you the next one then.
all
Okay.
right,
The next one is, do you agree with this? Do you agree or disagree with this? All modern rookie cards are overvalued.
I think whenever you put all in front
Yeah,
of
that's what I
any
was just
statement,
thinking.
there's
Yes.
always
Yeah.
like you can't really you can't say that. But like for
Right.
the spirit of the question, let's assume that they mean a lot, like mostly.
Yeah,
Okay.
generally speaking.
I think most modern rookie cards tend to be overvalued in any sport just because they're the new hot thing. And what I think people forget and they need to understand or remember, like if you collected and went to shows and collected cards in the 90s, like read a Beckett magazine from the 90s, like half the Beckett magazine of the articles is about like the new hot thing and they're like pushing that. So I mean that's always been there. So it's not,
Yeah.
this is nothing new. Like I need people to stop when they before they get mad at like Jaden Daniels cards. If you remember 1999 and Kurt Warner, that run, there were people that were just fiending for Kurt Warner cards to the point. I think we talked about it on here. Maybe it was a different time, but the Kurt Warner mania, where the hobby collector's edge had to basically, insert a hand numbered card into their latest release set after post production just to get a Kurt Warner card in because people were going nuts and they sold all the product. They couldn't even keep up with the sales. And that was in '99. So, I mean, they're always going to be overvalued. It is what it is. But yes, I
Yeah.
agree. They're overvalued overall.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, I think about like 93 SP foil Drew Bledsoe was like people were prospecting to no end, paying $20 for like the base cards. It's crazy. So it's like always been a thing. And rookie cards will continue to be heavily inflated by people who are trying to make money on them, and that's just the way it is, especially now with so many of them, and the way we um, look at comps, right, and the fact that a lot of them are fake, and it really just sets up sort of this straw market that we really can't accurately gauge. All right, what's the next one?
Next one is, now this is a pretty loaded question, but or not, it's not a question, but a pretty loaded
Yeah,
comment.
right.
If you aren't buying the top 0.5% of cards, typically rare vintage, don't call it an investment. It's okay to lose money in a hobby, own it. So, I
I'm
mean,
picturing some schmuck in a suit with his slick back hair, smoking a cigar in a lounge, saying this. Like with. I mean, that's crazy to me. I mean, investment. Okay, don't call it an investment. So the premise underlying this opinion is that an investment is something whereby you are necessarily seeking to make money. You could have an investment of time, of emotion, of many things, right? Like you could pay $100 for a card and then you could keep it for 2 years and enjoy it, and it could still be $100. Doesn't mean you didn't. Doesn't mean it was a bad investment, quote unquote. So, I mean, I think this was probably made by somebody who's not a collector. Although I don't know, maybe it was. I think um, it's just sort of an elitist approach to collecting. Like, yeah, it's fun to buy the top 0.5% of cards. However, I don't know how you would even determine that, but a lot of people can't do that, and so just because someone buys a $500 card, maybe they do look at it as an investment and they want it to go up to $600 or whatever their purpose is. I don't know. This I completely disagree with. I do agree that it's okay to lose money in a hobby and to own it, but I think the first part of it doesn't sit right with me.
I have to check again who posted that one. I have it saved and take a look, but I think it came from somebody who wasn't.
Was it
I
Vintage Person?
No, I think it came. I don't know, but I think it came from a person on the other end where they were saying like, um, don't treat the hobby like an investment. Like they were trying to.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see how that could be argued the other way? That's their opinion,
Yeah.
but either way, like I disagree with the 0.5% and don't call it an investment. Like, um, I don't think some of the rare 90 stuff is in the upper 0.5%.
Right.
Like, you mean to tell me that, yeah, they're high right now, but you mean to tell me like a 97 rubies, or like, even some of a super like a 101 superfractors and stuff, that's not like an investment? You mean to tell me that like that's not considered an investment? I mean, there's a lot of people that call themselves investors that buy those cards, whether they're doing it right or not. Like, I think those cards hold value. Let's just put it that way.
Hmm.
Monetary and collector value, like significance value overall in a collection. Those cards are significant. I don't think in like 10 years people are going to look back and say, "God, why did we buy all those 101s and those
Yeah.
out of 10 golds and those super fractors and rubies and PMGs? They suck. Let's go back to base cards." Like it's not going to change. I mean, I think people
Hmm.
think like, 10 years from now, people are going to look back and be like, "God, PMG sucked. Why did we buy them again?" No, that's not going to happen. Like, we're not going to switch back to buying unnumbered inserts and base cards for like, you know, high end collector cards. It's
Right.
not going to happen. And those aren't
Yeah.
0.5.
I
Those
agree.
aren't 0.5%. So
Yeah. Yeah.
disagree.
It's too small of a number. All right. Uh, Next one is 99. Here's another hyperbolic one. 99.9% of the hobby is meaningless noise from guys chasing their tails and holding cards that will be worthless in 20 years.
Uh,
Do you agree or
I
disagree?
I could not disagree with it more. The funny thing too, when we're reading these aren't like questions or like jokes. These are people put their name on these unpopular opinions and
Right.
posted them for a reason. Like, they want this out there to say, "Hey, I think this way," and like, look at me. So that's why I'm reading these. Like, these are not just made up things. It's crazy, and this is actually from a pretty significant, like, well known hobby account that had a podcast as well, or has one.
Hmm.
So I mean, this is pretty. It's a lot of people have seen this. I think that's crazy. How 99.9% of the hobby is meaningless noise. Like, I don't even know what chasing their tails means in it, but like, holding cards will be worthless in 20 years. I'll focus on that. Um, if here, if some base card, if a Griffey 1989 rookie, star rookie, upper deck rookie with million plus copies made is not worthless and still essentially almost the same value as it was back when it came out, or like in the early 90s, maybe a little bit more depending on grade. If that's not worthless, then how can you say majority of the stuff made now is worthless? Like, even a crappy numbered modern parallel to like 400 is not going to be worthless if a Griffey that's got a million plus copies is not worthless. You get what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
supply and demand. I mean, it's just not. There's going to always be set collectors, nostalgia collectors, player collectors. It's not going to be worthless.
It's the same. I mean, this tantamount to the last one that we read, which is the 0.5%. This is equally inane to say. So, like, if I go to a card show and I pick 1,000 people out, you're telling me that only one of them in the entire 1,000 that I selected will have cards that are not going to be worthless in 20 years. I mean, again, it also calling into question the worth, right, of the cards. Like, if you hold cards for 20 years because you like them, you know, who cares? They may be, sure, maybe they're not worth anything, but again, it doesn't make them worth less. It's an overly pessimistic view, in my opinion. It sounds like someone who's fed up with
Yeah.
investors and people, and I understand that. I do
Yep.
understand that, but that's an unpopular opinion because it's just so far in one direction, I guess.
Um, I'll read the next one. This is my favorite one. This is from a collector on Instagram I've been talking to more. Really like this account and this person. Um, Kabooms and downtowns would be way cooler if they cost $20 and were collected in binders.
I agree. Now, I would also say they'd be way cooler if they had kept them in retail. So in 2020, I think, or 2021, they put both of them in. I'm sorry, if they kept them only in hobby. They put them both in retail. So the way it is now, they've flooded the market with Kabooms, and then you introduce the golds, the gold downtowns, and you have the Black Pandora downtowns, and like the 101s and all this. And I like the concept. I think can be a cool concept, and I don't hate Kabooms. I just think that the design year over year is kind of the same. And they're fun. They're fun cards, but not at like $1,000.
Yeah.
It's just too much. So I think it'd be cool you could do a good downtown set in a binder. Would look kind of cool. And it would be a lot more fun, especially for kids. Like you could see younger collectors who would like to have these cards and be able to put them together, because there is that kind of youthful appeal about both of them, really. What about you? Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree 100% for all the reasons that you said. I sometimes think I've made jokes about kabooms with people. I know I've posted a couple times, like with kaboom sales. I think that Favre green sale was crazy to me. Like,
Right.
and I thought, like, what's my issue with kabooms? It's not that I dislike the cards. I actually kind of like them. I
Mm-hmm.
like kabooms. I like the gold ones especially. I like to own some of the gold kabooms, and even some of the downtowns. Like some of the backgrounds are kind of interesting in that. I don't mind those cards. I actually kind of like them. I think some look stupid, yeah, but some cards in general, some of the PMGs to me look stupid too, but I
Right.
still like them. But yeah, I think it comes to the price point. I think my biggest issue with them is how much they cost. If there's one
Mm-hmm.
thing that's like inflated, even beyond like rookies right now, to me it's kabooms. Maybe not like the 101s or the golds, but like the base ones, the case hits, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just there's a ton of them. The downtowns and they're just, to me they're just not special because there's a lot of them and they should not cost that much. If they were cheaper, it would be really cool to have like every year's downtown and then their kabooms in a nice binder. You're not going to do that really with the price that they are right here. So I agree 100%.
Yeah, I think um, it's the whole fact that they just became, there were just too many. Like for the price point, people think, oh, they're case hits, but they're not anymore. I just wanted to pull up an example here.
Yeah, because they're in
2020.
retail.
Yeah, 2021. Let me ask you this. What do you, just give me your guess? 2021 Donruss Optic Downtown of Trevor Lawrence. How many PSA graded copies are there of that card? Would you guess?
Any grade.
Yeah, all grades combined.
500.
653. And then you've got, an additional almost 100 between Beckett and SGC for a total graded population of 723.
Jeez.
So again, that's plus all the raw copies, right? So when you're talking about that much money for a card with that many copies, it just is, it's a hard pill to swallow.
It's a lot.
Okay, we get two more. Okay, next one is, most collectors are obsessed with grades and completely unaware that a higher grade doesn't mean it's a better card. Do you agree or disagree?
I think I would say most collectors, since the COVID boom, I think most collectors are obsessed with grade. I agree with that. I've noticed that it also really depends on what you collect too. Like
Yes.
with some of the rare stuff that we collect, I really don't care if I got a 5 or a 6. I try to stay away from like stuff below a 5 because usually that means there's like a significant defect to it that affects
Mm-hmm.
the way it looks. But I don't really care if it's rare. The grade doesn't matter. So it really depends on what you collect. But I do agree overall, people obsess over the grade, specifically in vintage. If you're in that realm, that's really grade heavy, and people like to look at the number, the grade number, not the card. And then ultra modern too. It's like you almost see like these rare cards, like a gold out of 10, will sell for a ton less than like even a 9 or especially a 10. Like it's almost worthless, right? Like, oh, this is a PSA 8. Well, who cares? It's a card's out of 10. Like there's only 9 other copies of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think it's kind of two statements. Like, most collectors are obsessed with grades. Like that's heavily dependent upon here. I know a lot of the guys I talk to and follow, they don't really care that much about grades. But now, if you're talking when there's more copies, it's probably like vintage. There's the eye appeal, but also the grade. Ultra modern. and it's if you're looking at it like investment or you're trying to make money, the better the higher the grade, the more money you can make. And completely unaware that a higher grade. Yeah, and I agree that that's true. A lot of people are looking though at the grade tied to the value of the asset. They don't really care about the better if the card's better condition. A 9 and a 10 on ultra modern is to the eye is probably very similar. There's not a whole lot of defects on a lot of these cards coming out of the pack. So, I mean, I do think there's like there's definitely an obsession with grades. It's not uniformly distributed across eras, I don't think. But, for the rare stuff, I agree with you. It's really shouldn't matter. Really, if you get it, as long as it's like authenticated essentially and protected, I think that's the most important thing. All right, give me our last one. I don't think I've ever heard anyone have this opinion. What is it?
There's one person, prominent account that has this opinion. No one collects football cards. Period. No one. Period.
It's a broken refrain at this point because he doesn't actually believe it, and he knows that it's untrue because number one, he collects football. Number two, he follows a bunch of people that collect football. Number three, his reason for it, which is that I think his reason's that basketball sells better, essentially. So that means no one collects football. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Yeah. So obviously this is an unpopular opinion that is really just wrong. I mean, obviously when you present your opinion as a fact, that's not really an opinion. So I obviously disagree with this statement. What do you think?
Yeah, I disagree with it too. And I reached out to him, had a pretty good conversation with him, just a friendly conversation, just like, what does this mean? Because you started seeing it like on every one of his posts, and he'd go out of his way to make like story posts with it. And it's just like, okay, I mean, you see it a couple times, you think, okay, the person's just kind of goofing around, making jokes. And then you see in like every post, every time I post a football card, it's no one collects football. And then there's other people like sharing the hashtag and stuff. I'm like, all right, this is getting ridiculous. So I just asked him, like, what are you trying to do here? Like, what does this mean? And his rationale to me didn't really make much sense. We kind of just discussed it and just left it at that. But, I guess it kind of feeds into the bigger thing of, it's a bigger account. A lot of people follow him. A lot of people see it. I just think sometimes people need to be careful with some of the stuff that they say. It can just be taken the wrong way, and it can kind of mess with people. Like you get in a mindset where everybody's flipping cards and everybody's, investing, right? And everybody's trying to be like that. I don't. You've probably seen the advertisements that Eric Michael or whatever that
with his hair plugs.
Yeah, it's gonna teach you how to quit your job and just invest in sports cards for the rest. I mean, like that's what you start to think when you see these accounts, and it's just that's not true. Like that doesn't happen. I actually told this guy, so he was like, and he's got the same gripes that we all do. Like all I see on all these people just buying this new stuff and flipping cards and selling, blah blah blah. It just gets old, And I'm like, yeah, I agree. I said, but maybe you need to follow different people or something.
Yeah, change your algorithm.
Yeah, I'm like, because I talk to a lot of people every day that it's all about hunting cards, collecting them. Like, how are you going to get this? I want to get this, or this popped up. Like, it's really fun buying cards and collecting when you get that, when you surround yourself with people like that. I mean, start blocking people. I don't know.
Yeah, it makes me wonder. Maybe he's engaging via chat with people who aren't collectors.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
right. Because he collects a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
So I know he knows. All right. So unpopular opinions, plenty of them out there, plenty to go around. Brian, we figured we'd share one. What is an unpopular opinion that you have?
All right. So my unpopular opinion, I'm going to give a disclaimer before people start. If there's any vintage people listening to blow up my
burn the witch.
Yeah, I don't have anything against vintage. All right. My unpopular opinion, and I'll explain what this means. My unpopular opinion is that vintage, I'd say roughly pre 1982, is overrated. Overrated. Okay. Not that I don't like it or it's bad or don't collect it. I'm not giving any investment advice. It's just overrated in terms of current monetary value, future investment value, and overall hobby importance in general. Now that's pretty heavy. Like people might see that and be like, whoa, take like, what are you doing? What do you mean? And I think if you're listening and you think that, that right there therein lies the problem. If you are taken back by what I just said, that's the problem. I love vintage cards. I love vintage cards probably more than most 90s or modern collectors. I've collected vintage cards my entire life. I still collect vintage Brewers and Packers. My favorite card of all time is the 1954 Topps Hank Aaron. I've said it a number of times. It means a lot to me. Just it was one of the first cards that I was really interested in as a kid. It was like a grail to me. Um, I think vintage cards are really cool to display. I love photography, so it reminds me of like old photography. I think vintage is the backbone of the hobby. It's where everything started. It's the foundation for the hobby. It holds most of the real true collectors. You go to any card show, you see the old guys sitting around the table with flipping through the binders with their loose leaf paper checklist filling sets. I love talking to those guys. I love going to those tables and finding some of the brewer cards and Packers I need for my team sets. But I guess what this is directed at is vintage over, I don't know when this has happened, maybe around COVID. It's gotten this like aura around it where it's like if you want to make money or secure financial wellness in the hobby of collecting cards, you buy vintage. If you want to you don't want to be overexposed to these other 90s and modern cards. You got to have some of your card portfolio be vintage because it's like, the blue chip stocks, right? It started when all people started talking about with cards was just monetary value. And I think that's my biggest issue with it. You can pull up, I'm not going to do it right here, but go onto Card Ladder when you get a chance. Go look at the vintage index that they have. They have a really good selection of vintage cards that Chris and Josh put together for the vintage card index. You'll see that trend is not just continuously increasing. It has a pretty significant dip up and down. There's ups and downs with it. And overall, there's a lot of those cards printed. Vintage is going to struggle, in my opinion, over the long run to really hold substantial value over some of these more rare cards because in the last, I would say 4 or 5 years, we've had an overexposure to social media and the ability to find cards, which makes these cards readily available. Like I love the 1954 Topps Hank Aaron, but I'm almost sick of seeing it. If you go to a card show, there's guys with tables of these things. And like when I was a kid, it would be tough to find a really clean copy because you just didn't see it, right? You didn't have Instagram or any social media. You could go onto eBay and buy 15 Hank Aaron's, right? 54 Topps Hank Aaron's right now, or any mantle you want, any type of grade you want, you can find them. It's just going to be, it's difficult to see that value increase. And the reason why I'm talking about value isn't like I'm trying to give investment advice or persuade people not to buy the card. My opinion is that there's so many people telling individuals in the hobby like, oh, it's safe, go buy vintage, go buy vintage. If you overpay for a really nice copy of this card, high eye appeal, that's fine. It's vintage. It's always going to go up. It's always going to hold value. I think that's dangerous. And I think a lot of people from like what we've read here with these unpopular opinions, there are some vintage collectors that said some of that stuff. And I think when you say like it's only rare vintage that's ever going to hold value, or mainly the 0.5%, the top 0.5% rare vintage, right? That's not the case. That's not the only stuff that's valuable. I think what everybody needs to understand, instead of looking at like vintage, modern, 90s, whatever, people need to find cards that they like because you can never lose value if you buy cards that you like. Don't listen to someone. If someone's telling you that vintage is safe, it's going to go up in value. It always goes up in value. It's always going to hold value. If they start talking like that, you got to really start questioning what their goal is and what they're trying to tell you. Because in my opinion, it's just not accurate.
Yeah. I think you're right on. I mean, I don't know a lot about vintage, but the way you put it sounds like it's like vintage is ultra modern for the risk averse, right? It's like ultra modern's the risky bet for investments. vintage is the safe bet for investments. If people look at cards only as an alternative asset class, which is a phrase thrown around, then yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, sure, I guess some vintage could be a good quote unquote investment, but if you don't really care about cards, go put your money in something else. Like you said, if find something that you like if you can buy a bunch of vintage cards because so and so tells you to, or because the card ladder index has them going up over the last 10 years, chances are, like, if you like trading cards but you're just buying those for the value, you probably won't hold them long enough to see them increase in value. I mean, because at the end of the day, if you really don't like them, you're probably going to sell them or trade them for something that you really do like. I don't know how many of our listeners are vintage collectors. I know we have some hybrid collectors as well who collect vintage because they're passionate about it, and that's fantastic. And again, this is not a knock on vintage, like Brian said. It's just, I think he's just thinking about select few people who in the vintage world who say this kind of stuff. So no shade on the vintage community by any means, as Brian said. I had a hard time coming up with an unpopular opinion. You made a good point that we probably say unpopular stuff a lot, but it's hard to think of it when you're kind of like on the hot seat trying to come up with something. I said this. Maybe this is not unpopular. It probably is to some people. I said Panini would have done much better with the MLB license than Topps over the last 10 years or 12 years. I know there are many people who, for whom Topps is the end all be all for baseball cards. And I understand that because of the history, the lineage. People love Topps paper. But, I'm really talking about the Topps Bowman tree of products, right? Topps Chrome, Bowman Chrome, Bowman Draft, all that stuff. It just seems to me that, obviously tell me if you disagree with this at the end. The design elements of their cards over the last 12 years have, to me, been pretty stagnant. For one, maybe it's my unfamiliarity with the Bowman Draft products, but generally speaking, if I see a table full of Bowman Draft cards, they all look the same to me in a lot of ways, right? I mean, it's very similar framing, very similar layout year over year, whether it's auto or not. And it just sort of like, at least with Prism, there are distinguishing features that make them stand out year to year, and you can recall them pretty quickly. I also think a big thing is, Topps has introduced a lot of parallels, just like Panini has. But where I would give Panini a lot of credit is not only is the design team fantastic, their inserts are to me much stronger than Topps. Like, I think about Fleer Skybox in the 90s and their inserts versus like the inserts you'd find in Topps Chrome or Finest, right? Back then, like Centurion's refractors, they're fine, but like they don't rise to the level of some of those inserts we saw from Arena Design. And I feel that kind of that way now with Topps versus Panini and some of the things that we, even Kabooms and Downtowns, and you look at all the other cool stuff like Color Blast and Stained Glass and all that stuff that Panini has developed in basketball and football. And Panini obviously makes all these products for baseball, but had they been licensed, I think that, let's say this, had they been licensed and Topps also had been licensed, that would have been really interesting to me to see what collectors ended up preferring, like whether the Topps loyalists would have won the day or whether people would have come to appreciate the fact that Panini just typically designs better. So I don't know. Maybe that's not that unpopular. Maybe it is. What are your thoughts?
I think I respect Topps and I like Topps and Bowman. You know that I like the Bowman first baseball and the autos, and I love the gold refractor Bowman first autos. But I think their problem is that they've just had such a long period of time. Like they've taken something that was really good and really trendy in the early 2000s, like the Bowman first, and then the first autos of that player's car or that player, the prospect autos, and they've kind of carried that on since the early 2000s. It's been going on for 20 years now, and they really haven't changed anything with it. And that's not saying don't do that, but there's nothing really special about that Bowman first auto anymore. Whereas in the early 2000s, it was special. I think that's the problem with Topps and Bowman, where they kind of do something and then they just beat it to death. And now that Fanatics owns it, it's really only Topps by name. It's Fanatics, and they love. If you know anything about Fanatics, just they'll do something and just water it down and beat it to death even more. So I mean, we're entering the age of just beating things to death in the card market when it comes to production quality. So,
Right.
and that's what's going to happen. I guess I agree. I like seeing, and a lot of other people have said it. I know they've said it on the crossover, but it's nice to have like a finish or a finite run for Panini. I like seeing things end. I like seeing like PMGs and Rubies end.
Right.
I like seeing an end to these products and these designs.
Yeah, I do too. And I think now we'll have, 13 to 14 years of Prism, right? Roughly overall. And that'll be it. And presuming that Fanatics doesn't buy Panini and have them
I hope they
continue.
don't.
Me too.
They're going to kill it. They're going to water it down just like they do with Topps.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're already seeing some like Topps Mercury and stuff like that. Like
it's crazy.
The unlicensed stuff, it looks terrible. It's like Leaf on par with Leaf stuff. But yeah, I mean, and it's cool that like we're talking about like Jordan Love, like he's only going to have 5 years, maybe 6 years of Prism. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Let's get into our main segment, which is you have your PowerPoint 1998 score showcase 1-of-1s.
All right. So the reason why I wanted to kick off our series on 1-of-1s, well, I guess it's the second episode, the 1-of-1s, but really it's our first set that we're doing a deep dive in, because we talked about where it started with the Flair stuff, the Masterpiece cards last week. But the first set that I wanted to start with was one that came shortly after. It's the 1999 score showcase, and it's kind of a for people that don't 98. What did I say? 91, 98 score showcase 1-of-1s. It was only released in baseball and football. It was actually only released in a score rookies and traded set for baseball. It wasn't even the full score set, and then it was released for a full score football set. But the reason why some people might not know much about these, they might see them and not really understand what they are, is because there were sets that really probably shouldn't have been released. They were kind of released after. It was either after the bankruptcy filing for Pinnacle, or it was like right before. It was just a product that was laying around, and it was pre-production. They fired it off as their last hurrah. So there are some little intricacies and things to learn about it. And I actually learned a lot this year, because what I have pictured here is there's a Favre and a Griffey on this first slide. And that was the Favre that I originally purchased. And I'll talk a little bit about why I don't have that card anymore. It's not because I don't like it. It's just there's a couple intricacies with this set that people need to understand. And hopefully by listening to this, you'll understand a little bit more about these. So going into this 1998 score football, some of the info was as I said, it was released around the time of the Pinnacle bankruptcy filing. It was distributed in one series, 270 card base set. And the key rookies were with any other 98 score football. You got Manning, Moss, Charles Woodson, Amon Green, Fred Taylor, the big guys that you see in other 98 sets. There were 8 insert sets. I think they're all pretty cool. If you've never seen some of the Epics cards or the complete players are really cool as well. So they had some really cool insert sets. And the really nice thing about this, and one of the main reasons why I picked this, is because it's one of the packs that I remember, boxes that I remember buying as a kid. I didn't have a ton of hobby dollars at the time in 1998. I was in eighth grade, and they were 99 cents a pack. So you could get a hobby box for pretty cheap. and maybe even a couple. And, parents didn't feel guilty buying them. You get some cool looking cards out of them. I also thought the design was cool. Just really nice cards for 99-cent packs. And you could get one-of-ones in it. So for the hobby boxes, which again, I think you can go on a tangent with this, but I think that's part of the downfalls in today's modern hobby is that you can't go to the store and buy a hobby box for dirt cheap and get one-of-ones really. Like it just, you have to pay thousands of dollars. And I think that's one thing that we're missing in the hobby. So it was really, this brings back a lot of memories with this set, a lot of nostalgia.
That picture of Ryan Leaf, it looks fake. Looks like it's the guy on actor on a commercial playing a football player in his oversized jersey. I love the Epics insert set, but boy, is that confusing, right? You've got like the emerald, the orange, the purple, and then you've got like the game, the moment. It kind of gets tricky because it's distributed across multiple products too in the
Yeah.
Pinnacle families, which makes it tricky. But those are nice.
So it was the milestone emerald out of 30. So they're numbered out of
Moment,
30.
isn't it? Isn't the moment, or is it the milestone
It's
for
the milestone. I had to actually
football?
look it up again. I get them mixed up,
Yeah.
the moment or a milestone. But there's a merino sitting on eBay right now for a pretty good price. I think it's a merino out of 30. They're really cool cards. They kind of have a similar like effect to like a Kaboom, how they got that
Yeah.
laser in the background. Really cool looking cards. But anyway, for the 101s. So this is where it gets confusing. And I had to research this when I was buying the Favre. I was trying to research and try to figure out like why, in relation to other 101s, why are these kind of cheap? And the main reason is that they're parallels of inserts. So you might look at this and be like, well, how are they parallels of inserts? How is it an insert because they look exactly the same as the base set? Well, that's where numbering comes into play. So any card, and this isn't just this set, but like in general, this is something to remember that anytime a card changes its number on the checklist, it is now considered an insert. That's with any set. So whenever the numbering is different, it is no longer a parallel or a base card, a parallel of the base card, or part of the base set. It is a insert. And in this case, these cards have the prefix PP in front of their numbers, and the numbering is different. So basically what these 101s are is there's an artist proof insert set, which I have pictured here on the left side of your screen. And then there's a showcase series insert set. The artist proof insert set is one that has the same design as like we've seen in past. Obviously it's the 97 Rubies football design, but it also is in, I think, the artist proofs for 97 score as well. But it's the same exact design, the same background, that like amoeba looking Ruby 97 Rubies design. Really cool looking card. The showcase series is kind of to me, it's kind of an ugly card. It's like a foil, darkened foil background. There's not much to it. But what that did was it took the entire 100, or it took the entire set of cards and it split them between two insert series. So like there's skip numbering. If you look at the checklist for the artist proof, it skips numbers. I don't know why they did this. It's weird to me, but they skip numbers, and then the showcase series fills in the missing numbers. So like artist proof might be like numbers PP1, PP2, PP5, PP8, and then the showcase series would fill in like PP3, PP4, like the missing numbers. And then the one of ones, there's an artist proof one of ones where they parallel the artist proof numbered cards. And then there's a showcase series one of ones where they parallel the showcase inserts. They are all the same design, look exactly the same. They have a big gold badge. It says 001 out of 001 on the front. And then they have the 99 rubies. We'll just refer to them as that, the 99 rubies design, the star design. And I believe they're the first cards that had that star pattern on them. I will note too that the showcase series on the back of the cards, they had a big badge that says showcase series. Again, I don't know why. It's really weird to me. But again, this was a company that was going through bankruptcy, and maybe they rushed some stuff out without really fleshing it all out.
I just was thinking, like, I have 5 or 6 of those, the artist proof. It's a great way, like, if you have a player, like maybe you collect Sanders or Rice or something like that, and you don't want to, you can't or won't pay that much money for their 97 rubies. These are really cool alternative, well designed for a scorecard. I like the nameplate, the vertical nameplate on the left, and then you get the same. It's literally the same rubies effect. I mean, slightly different, but it's the same amoeba like, uh, you know, design on it. So good alternative to those pricier options.
I mean, can you look at this? Like this, these don't look like 99-cent pack cards.
No, they're really nice. Yeah.
So some important facts about the set. As I mentioned, it's the first to use the stars design. They'd be later using 99 Skybox Rubies for football. This is the part where I didn't really realize it until I bought the Favre, and it's what kind of bothered me a little bit about it. It's still a 101, but there's multiple copies of a lot of these cards introduced into the market because of the Pinnacle bankruptcy, and they're all stamped. So there's really no way to tell which one's pack pulled and which one was, the company copies. And to some that might be like, oh, well, that doesn't matter, because then, I mean, if a few pop up, I'll just keep buying them. Or if there's no way to tell, then, who cares? But to me, it was like there weren't any other Favres that anybody knows of. I think there's just the one that I had. But just knowing that a lot of these cards have multiples out there, just kind of, it didn't feel like a 101 to me, because we know backdoor copies of a lot of cards get out, and we know that no 101 is really a true 101, because there's always company copies and stuff in the corporation, in the filed cabinets. But when you see them, it kind of sullied it for me. So that's why it wasn't really a big card for me, and I moved on from it. And then some players have multiple cards between the regular and the subset. So there's a subset for football. It's called off season. It can throw off some of the prices. So like, you might see like a Favre. It might say off, like the one that's pictured I have here is the checklist. It looks like an actual, like one of the cards, but it's a checklist. And then there's an off season where he has a different picture. And then it has the other copy that I had, the base space. So he's got 3 cards in the set, all with 101s, all with multiple copies. Now it kind of felt to me like, you're getting into like Topps Gold Label or something like that. But that's one of the downfalls for me.
I'm with you. I mean, I think if I had that card, I probably would have felt the same as you with just, it's indistinguishable. Like, at least we know with some of the stuff, there's duplicate 101s, we could maybe distinguish them, but not knowing, and it doesn't make, it makes it feel less like a true 101, especially because I think there was a McNair collector who had one and said he'd seen 3 of them or something like that. So
yeah, he had all 3, I think.
Yeah, so it was kind of one of those things where, like, Jesus, so there's at least 3 of some players. That's kind of discouraging. I might as well move on, But nice looking card.
Yeah, beautiful card. It's really cool. Now moving into baseball, it's kind of weird. I guess when I talk about this, and you'll see, like, if you have a player in this baseball set, it might be something really cool to get, because I think they're better. To me, they're kind of more rare, and I mean, it's a 101, but they're better than the football version, and you'll see why. They were released again in the summer of '98, hence why this is the rookie and traded baseball set. They already released the '98 score, the main set, the major release in the spring. And then they released this as a traded set, or like an update set. This was distributed again in one series. There's 270 cards, but the 101s were only for 160 cards in the set. I don't really know why, but that's what they were. There were some decent rookies in this set: Jimmy Rollins, Troy Glass, Mike Lowell, Carlos Lee, former Brewer, Kevin Millar, El Duque, Orlando Hernandez. 5 inserts sets, really cool. Again, similar to the football ones, the epics. The stargazing is a little bit different than some of the football ones, but they're cool. Again, 99-cent packs. I didn't pull this much when I didn't buy these packs when I was a kid, really, the baseball ones, but I really did it for football because of Charles Woodson and Peyton Manning. The showcase artist proofs are featured here. If you're looking at this slide, it's a little bit different. So the artist proofs, the insert had the star aesthetic, like the football showcase 101s or artist proof 101s. That was the base artist proof insert. So they looked exactly like the football 101s. Then the showcase artist proof 101s has the gold badge on the front. There was only one insert set that it paralleled, unlike the football where there was the two. But this design was, I mean, I guess I would describe it as like, if you're familiar with like a ray wave.
Yeah,
Kind
right.
of.
The lie detector. Yeah, it's like it is like yeah, it is like a gamma ray kind of or something like that. I think that's maybe the best way to describe it. Do you
There is
like
a
it?
ray wave parallel in the new Bowmans and Tops, and it's kind of like
Oh, yeah, I think I've seen that actually. Do you like what do you like better? Do you like the wave or do you like the stars effect?
Well, I really like the stars, but I think because this is something like you see stars in a lot of other sets after this,
Yeah,
even
you
though it was
do.
like the first to do it, you
Right.
see them a lot. I've never really seen a card that looks like this. So I think like if I had like a brewer that I want to collect, there is a brewer in this set. I'll get to who it is in a minute. But if I had like a Jeff Cirillo or like a Jenkins or something, I'd be all over this card. I would think it'd be really cool to have.
You know what I was thinking though? You're right that this, like for full coverage, the stars is the first, but that actually, they did have that star design on the border of the 97 essential credentials for baseball only.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that, but you know, it was around within a year. But yeah, so this was, they were using that star design quite a bit. I guess it was trying it out, but I don't know. It's weird that they didn't use that ray wave or whatever you want to call it in other parallels in the 90s, or as many parallels in the 90s, you know, because the stars, right, like were used by Flair Skybox, and here this is, you know, these are not Flair Skybox cards or Pinnacle cards. But I'm surprised that no one else was using the ray wave type of
If
parallel
somebody looks at this and says that, and they know of another set that's used this and it looks like exactly the same, like message me
in
or
the
let me
90s.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
looked. I couldn't find it, but again, I can't look through every single set of
Right.
cards. So if you know of another set that uses them, but I think they're really cool. They're really cool looking cards. I mean, to give it away, the brewer that is in this set, it's one of my favorites, Antoine Williamson. His rookie card is in this set. Unfortunately, my least favorite brewer in these 90 sets is in this one. So I guess just so I can have a brewer from this set, like if one pops up, if anybody knows where the Antoine Williamson Brewers Artist Proof Showcase 101 is, let me know. And, maybe I'll consider buying it. But some important facts about this. We talked about the Ray Wave style. There's multiple copies, just like with the football. They got out into the public, so they look exactly the same. There's no distinguishing features between pack pulled and backdoor copies. There's 38 Hall of Famers in this set, which is pretty. I mean, that's pretty big for 162 or 160 card update 101 set. And then some players, instead of the off-season cards, they have the subset called Spring Training. So, like some of your stars, most of your stars have multiple base cards, which means they have multiple 101s in the set. Jeter being one of them, he's got multiples. But a lot of these images they're like batting practice, warm-up gear, and stuff like that. I guess it's kind of different than the base set cards from the original score, 98 score. But pictured here, we got the Derek Jeter, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. The Mark McGuire, which is a cool card. Looks like the baseball is going to hit him in the head.
Yeah, so I was thinking, yeah.
And then the Ken Caminiti is really cool. So if you look at this presentation for anything, look up the Ken Caminiti card. It's on Card Ladder.
That is cool. He looks so imposing there.
Yeah, it's just a badass looking card. Some of the market sales and the market impact is kind of surprising for these. It's lower than a lot of 101. So this is one of the reasons I talked about this. Is a nice entry level 101 set for anybody who wants to get their first, 101, and they don't want to pay up for, a super fractor or something of a star player. You can get a star player for decent. I mean, thousands of dollars isn't cheap, but in relation to what you could pay, it's a decent price for a 101. The highest sale ever, public sale ever for one of these, football or baseball, is the Jeter. There's 2 PSA copies graded, meaning, there's one is pack pulled, one is backdoor. I think the one that sold, chances are, if you had to guess, the PSA 8 version in the old slab is probably the, I don't know if the other one's in a newer slab, but it's a pretty old PSA slab. It's probably the pack pulled one, you would think, maybe. But that sold for $3,000 on PWCC in 2022. So pretty good price for this set. And then the Steve Young that's pictured just sold last December for $1,250 on eBay. Really cool looking card though, Steve Young. Some notable sales. This is more astounding than anything. The Andres Galarraga sold for $2,325 in 2016. That's a lot of money now. It's a lot of money back then for cards in 2016.
Yeah, for a Galarraga, that's very surprising.
Yeah, I don't know if Galarraga bought that himself.
Yeah, probably.
Or what. The Griffey is it was pictured in the opening slide. It's a cool card. He's got sunglasses on, hat backwards. $1,225 doesn't seem like a ton, but for 2013, the hobby, the collecting hobby, the collecting space wasn't really prominent like it is now in 2013. So to spend $1,225 on a Griffey card, that's a lot of money back then. And then the Manning rookie, this is another big one, $1,136 in 2005 at eBay auction. So these are auction prices. This isn't just like one person. $1,100 in 2005 for a Manning rookie card. It's a 101, obviously, significant card. If it hit auction now, it'd probably go for a lot more than that, I would think. Being a 101.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Do you have anything to add about this set or market or anything?
Yeah, it is a good entry level. But then again, if you're leery about the backdoor thing, I can understand that too. I guess if you could, it'd be fun to get one maybe that you could find just kind of a lesser player, maybe like on your team that you like for like $200 or something like
Antoine
that.
Williamson.
Yeah, exactly like Antone. So I think there's definitely ways to access the set that aren't buying top tier guys, and that will give you a chance to hold it in hand and see whether you like it. Because the stars, to me, the stars effect is hit or miss. Like I don't really like it, but I know a lot of people that do.
Do you like the baseball or the football better?
I prefer the way I would rank them would be the artist proof football, and then the artist proof 101 baseball, and then the artist proof 101 football. So the basically rubies, wave, stars design.
But of the 101s, you would take the baseball.
Oh, I'd take the baseball. Yeah,
just like me.
I think so. Yeah, I agree.
So I'm not on an island with that.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. It's unique too. Like we said, we're not sure about too many other parallels that have that design or that effect in the 90s.
Like that Jeter looks really, even though he's in like warm up gear, I think that's a really cool looking card. If I collected Jeter, I think that would be a really cool card to have.
Yeah, that's nice. Well, that was really informative. Thanks for putting that together. Learned a lot about the set. Hope you guys did too. Again, we're going to spend some time doing these 101 episodes and try to get some one-of-one collectors on, because there's some really good ones out there. Brian, any closing thoughts before we head out for the week?
No, we just have a minor change to the show that we should probably mention. We're going to start releasing consistently on Fridays. So just gives us a little bit more time to put things together and that throughout the week. And we'll have the episodes out regularly every Friday.
Yep. Easier schedule for us to stick to. Just weeks are getting busier, and Brian's back in school, and his school's back. Makes it sound like you're a student again now. You're
having a kid.
Having a kid. But so we'll be here every Friday for the foreseeable future, and we'll catch you next week.